You beg for connection and call it loyalty. That desperation brands you disposable. Access is power, and you've been handing it away for scraps of validation. You are trained to believe that humility makes you admirable. It doesn't. It makes you negotiable. From childhood, you were rewarded for compliance. Share your toys, say please, don't upset anyone, be understanding, be patient, be the bigger person. Over time, that conditioning hardened into identity. You began to see restraint as maturity. Accommodation is strength. Self-sacrifice is proof of character. But in adult power dynamics, especially in attraction, business, and status hierarchies, those traits are not read as virtue. They are read as availability. And availability signals abundance of supply. The marketplace, whether romantic, social, or professional, operates on scarcity and selection. When you beg for attention, chase responses, over-explain your intentions, or soften your standards to avoid rejection, you are not displaying loyalty. You are signaling surplus. Surplus men are not pursued. They are consumed. Understand this clearly. When you ask for access to someone's time, body, or validation without requiring qualification, you position yourself beneath them. The act of begging, subtle or overt, is a declaration of asymmetry. You are saying, you are the gatekeeper, I am the applicant. And humans instinctively respect gatekeepers more than applicants. This is not about cruelty, it is about hierarchy. The moral story you were sold says, if you are good, patient, and sincere, the right people will appreciate you. Reality says, if you are easy to obtain, you will be taken for granted. Virtue without boundaries becomes submission. Submission without authority becomes invisibility. When you respond instantly every time, when you rearrange your schedule without resistance, when you accept crumbs of attention and label them progress, you are training others how to treat you. You are teaching them that your access is cheap. Power begins with controlled access. Consider any structure of value: clubs, institutions, elite circles. They do not beg people to join. They create standards. They screen. They reject. That rejection is not insecurity. It is filtration. Filtration builds prestige. You, however, were taught the opposite strategy. Prove yourself worthy of inclusion. But inclusion is the position of the subordinate. The sovereign does not seek entry. He defines it. When you beg, you transfer authority. When you plead for clarity, chase reassurance, or demand affirmation, you are placing your emotional state in someone else's hands. You become reactive. And reactive men are predictable. Predictable men are manageable. Manageable men are not respected. The illusion of virtue convinces you that being agreeable will protect you from abandonment. In truth, it accelerates it. People do not value what requires no effort. Effort creates investment. Investment creates attachment. If someone does not have to earn your time, they will not fear losing it. And what is not feared is not guarded. This is why begging corrodes attraction. It eliminates tension. It removes uncertainty. It destroys polarity. You think you are proving devotion. In reality, you are advertising dependency. Dependency kills authority. Authority is built through selective presence. The moment you understand that access is a resource, finite, deliberate, controlled, you stop offering it reflexively. You begin to observe instead of pursue. You allow silence to work. You allow absence to create pressure. And pressure reveals value. The first shift is mental. Stop viewing your restraint as coldness. It is calibration. Stop seeing boundaries as hostility. They are filtration systems. Stop believing that asking repeatedly makes you persistent. It makes you replaceable. The man who begs believes connection is scarce. The sovereign understands that his presence is scarce. That distinction changes everything. When you internalize this, you begin to reverse the dynamic. Instead of asking, "Do they like me?" you begin asking, Do they qualify? That question alone elevates your position, because now you are not seeking approval, you are evaluating access. And evaluation is a position of power. Begging is not kindness. It is surrender disguised as virtue. Kill the disguise. Access must be earned, or it will never be respected. Human beings do not value what is available. They value what resists them. This is not poetry. It is wiring. Scarcity triggers pursuit. Abundance triggers indifference. When something is difficult to obtain, the brain assigns it importance. When something is easy, it becomes background noise. You have experienced this your entire life. Jobs, status, women, opportunities. The ones that required effort felt significant. The ones handed to you felt disposable. Yet when it comes to your own presence, you ignore this law. You make yourself available at all times. You respond immediately. You over-communicate. You offer emotional transparency without resistance. You remove friction, believing that ease creates connection. It does not. It creates convenience, and convenience is never revered. Authority is not built on kindness. It is built on controlled scarcity. Think about power structures. Leaders do not over-explain themselves. High-value individuals do not chase invitations. Elite circles do not flood access. They create barriers. Barriers generate desire. When you reduce barriers around yourself, when you make your time, energy, and validation constantly accessible, you remove the very mechanism that generates attraction. This is the core psychological mechanism. Effort creates perceived value. When someone must work for your attention, wait for your response, adjust to your schedule, qualify for your time, they invest. And investment alters psychology. The more effort they expend, the more they convince themselves that you are worth it. This is called commitment escalation. The brain hates inconsistency. If someone exerts effort to access you, their mind rewrites the story. He must be valuable, otherwise why would I try? But when you chase them, they invest nothing, and what costs nothing is abandoned without thought. You were told that love and loyalty should be unconditional. That mindset works in childhood. It fails in adult power dynamics. In the real world, conditional access is what preserves respect. Not cruelty, not arrogance. Conditions. When you establish that your time must be scheduled, your standards must be met, your boundaries must be respected, you are not being difficult. You are structuring reality. Structure signals strength. Chaos signals desperation. Notice how authority figures behave. They are not loud. They are not frantic. They are measured. They are selective. Their silence carries weight because it is not easily obtained. When they speak, people listen because access to their voice is limited. Your words have no weight if they are constantly available. Your presence has no gravity if it is constantly given. Scarcity creates gravity. Gravity pulls. Begging repels. The man who fears losing access gives more than he should. The sovereign understands that controlled distance increases perceived magnitude. He does not disappear to manipulate. He regulates exposure to maintain value. This is where most men fail. They confuse availability with reassurance. They think constant communication proves seriousness. It proves insecurity. Insecurity leaks through excess. Excess texting, excess explaining, excess emotional availability. Every excess is an attempt to reduce uncertainty. But uncertainty is what creates tension. Tension fuels attraction. Attraction drives pursuit. When you eliminate uncertainty, you eliminate intrigue. And when intrigue dies, so does interest. You must understand, you are not competing on goodness. You are competing on psychological leverage. Leverage comes from being able to walk away. If you cannot walk away, you have no leverage. And if you have no leverage, your access has no authority. Scarcity is not about playing games. It is about self-containment. When your life is full, When your schedule is structured, when your mission absorbs your energy, access to you becomes naturally limited. That limitation forces others to adapt to your frame. Adaptation signals hierarchy. The one who adapts is lower in the structure. Right now, you adapt constantly. You rearrange, you compromise, you accommodate, and then you wonder why respect erodes. Respect erodes when access is effortless. Authority emerges when access is earned. This is not about being cold for sport. It is about strategic containment. You are not withholding affection. You are filtering who qualifies for it. If someone disappears because you stopped overgiving, they were never investing. They were consuming. Let them leave. The sovereign does not panic when access shrinks. He understands that contraction precedes elevation.
There are only two archetypes in every dynamic, the one who seeks permission and the one who grants it. You have been operating as the supplicant. The supplicant is not weak in appearance. He may be competent, intelligent, even confident on the surface, but beneath that exterior is a constant negotiation for acceptance. He scans for signals, he adjusts tone, he moderates opinions, he calibrates himself to avoid disapproval. He believes adaptability is strength. In reality, it is submission disguised as diplomacy. Watch his behavior closely. He double texts when replies slow down. He explains jokes that didn't land. He softens boundaries after resistance. He gives more when energy is not reciprocated. He asks for reassurance instead of observing behavior. Every action whispers the same message: do not remove me. The supplicant fears exclusion more than he values sovereignty, so he trades authority for temporary inclusion. He tolerates ambiguity. He rationalizes disrespect. He absorbs imbalance and calls it patience. But patience without power is waiting in line, and lines are for applicants. Now examine the sovereign. The sovereign does not chase clarity. He observes patterns. If energy drops, he reduces investment. If respect erodes, he withdraws presence. He does not threaten departure. He simply reallocates attention, silently. The sovereign does not over-explain his standards. Standards are not debated. They are demonstrated through consequence. Access tightens. Time becomes scarce. Availability decreases. He does not punish. He filters. The difference is subtle but decisive. The supplicant seeks to be chosen. The sovereign decides who qualifies. That psychological inversion transforms every interaction. When you stop asking, "How do I keep her?" and start asking, "Does she earn continued access?" the entire frame shifts. You become evaluator instead of applicant. Evaluation creates pressure. Pressure reveals character. The supplicant believes love is maintained through effort. The sovereign understands that effort must be mutual, or it collapses. If he senses imbalance, he does not compensate, he calibrates. Calibration is power. Consider how predators operate in the wild. They do not chase every movement. They assess, they conserve energy, they strike selectively. Waste is weakness. The supplicant wastes constantly: energy, time, attention, emotional bandwidth. He invests in low-yield exchanges because he fears emptiness. The sovereign does not fear emptiness. He uses it. Silence becomes a test. Distance becomes a filter. Non-reactivity becomes dominance. The supplicant reacts to every fluctuation. A delayed response triggers anxiety. A shift in tone triggers overcorrection. He becomes predictable, and predictability eliminates tension. The sovereign is less readable, not because he is manipulative, but because he is self-contained. His emotional state does not hinge on another person's behavior. That containment creates intrigue. Intrigue commands respect. Respect sustains attraction. The supplicant thinks consistency means constant presence,
The sovereign understands consistency means stable standards. Stable standards reduce chaos. Chaos lowers perceived value. You must confront something uncomfortable. Most men overgive because they lack internal structure. Without mission, without hierarchy of priorities, without disciplined focus, relationships become their primary arena for validation. And when validation becomes primary, bargaining begins. You negotiate for scraps. The sovereign does not negotiate for affection. He negotiates from position. Position comes from options. Options come from independence. If you have no options, socially, romantically, professionally, you will always behave like a supplicant because you cannot afford to lose access. The sovereign can afford to lose access. That is why he rarely does. This chapter is not about arrogance. It is about architecture. The sovereign builds a life that does not collapse when someone withdraws attention. The supplicant builds his identity around external approval. One is anchored, the other drifts. And drifting men beg for docks. Anchored men decide who may board. If you want authority, you must abandon supplication. That means tolerating silence. That means risking loss. That means allowing people to disqualify themselves without chasing repair. Most men cannot do this. That is why most men are replaceable. The sovereign understands something the supplicant refuses to accept. Not everyone deserves continued access. And the moment you truly believe that, you stop begging.
Understanding the principle is meaningless if your behavior remains unchanged. Power is not an idea, it is structure. If you continue responding instantly, oversharing prematurely, and accepting minimal effort, you are still the supplicant, just with better vocabulary. This chapter is about behavioral engineering, not emotion, not mindset, execution. First principle. Slow everything down. Speed signals anxiety. Anxiety signals fear of loss. When you reply immediately every time, you communicate that nothing in your world outranks the interaction. That hierarchy inversion lowers perceived value. Delay strategically. Not to manipulate, but to re-establish priority. Your schedule comes first. Your mission comes first. Your obligations come first. Communication fits into your structure, not the other way around. Second principle, require reciprocity before escalation. Do not increase investment unless the other party matches it. If energy rises, you match. If it plateaus, you hold. If it declines, you reduce. This prevents overextension. Overextension creates imbalance. Imbalance destroys respect. Most men escalate too quickly, emotionally, logistically, physically. They reveal vulnerability without qualification. They plan excessively. They offer exclusivity prematurely. Stop doing that. Access expands in layers. Layer 1, basic communication. Layer 2, shared time. Layer 3, deeper access to your world. Layer 4, emotional integration. Each layer requires demonstrated consistency, not words, behavior. Third principle, eliminate unearned reassurance. If someone withdraws slightly and you immediately compensate, longer texts, clarifications, invitations, you train them to reduce effort to extract more from you. Reward consistency. Do not reward distance. If effort drops, you do not panic, you observe. If the pattern continues, you recalibrate your own effort downward, calmly. Silence is data. Use it. Fourth principle, stop explaining your standards. When you say, I just value communication, I need consistency, I'm looking for something serious. You are negotiating compliance. Standards are enforced through consequence. If someone violates them, reduce access. No debate, no lecture, no emotional performance. Reduction of access is the message. Fifth principle, protect mystery. You do not reveal your entire past in one night. You do not disclose every plan, insecurity, or ambition immediately. Exposure without filtration reduces intrigue. Intrigue sustains attraction. Selective revelation builds depth. Sixth principle, maintain parallel priorities. If your entire emotional focus narrows onto one person, you will unconsciously overinvest. Continue building your physical strength, financial leverage, social network, intellectual edge. Diversification protects power. A man with multiple avenues of growth does not cling to one source of validation. Seventh principle, practice calibrated detachment. Detachment does not mean apathy. It means you are willing to walk away without collapse. If behavior consistently disrespects your structure, you exit. No announcement, no dramatic exit speech, just withdrawal. Walking away without chaos signals self-respect. Self-respect forces recalibration in others. Now understand the deeper shift. You are no longer trying to secure access, you are managing it. Management implies authority. Authority changes tone. Your messages become shorter, clearer, less reactive. You do not overqualify. You do not chase closure. If something ends ambiguously, you allow it to end. The sovereign does not demand explanation for every silence. He measures behavior over time. Engineering earned access is about conditioning. When people realize that attention from you is not automatic, that it requires effort, consistency, alignment, they adjust upward or they exit. Both outcomes are victories. If they adjust upward, standards rise. If they exit, filtration works. The only loss is continuing to overgive. Remember this. Generosity without structure is weakness. Structure without generosity is coldness. The sovereign balances both, but access always flows through structure. You are not becoming distant, you are becoming deliberate. Deliberation creates gravity. Gravity creates pursuit. Pursuit creates respect, and respect is the foundation of lasting power. If you implement these behaviors, something will happen. Some people will drift away. Let them. Those who remain will invest more. And now, access is no longer begged for. It is earned. The final barrier is not external. It is identity. You can adjust timing. You can reduce over-texting. You can enforce boundaries. But if you still see yourself as the good one, the understanding one, the safe one, you will relapse. Because the pleaser is not a behavior, it is a self-concept. You were rewarded for being agreeable. Teachers praised it. Parents depended on it. Friends benefited from it. You learned that your value came from being non-threatening, accommodating, reliable, useful, but never sovereign. The pleaser survives by minimizing friction. He believes conflict risks abandonment, so he softens opinions, he absorbs disrespect, he explains instead of exits, he negotiates instead of enforces. He calls it maturity. It is fear of exclusion. To kill the pleaser, you must accept something brutal. Some people will dislike you when you stop overgiving. That is not a side effect. It is proof of filtration. When you tighten access, when you delay responses, when you refuse to justify boundaries, people who benefited from your compliance will feel resistance. They may label you distant, cold, changed. You have changed. That is the point. The pleaser fears being misunderstood.
The sovereign accepts misinterpretation as collateral damage. You cannot be selective and universally liked. Selection creates exclusion. Exclusion creates tension. Tension reveals hierarchy. Right now, your nervous system still reacts to potential rejection. That reaction drives begging. It drives reassurance seeking. It drives overcompensation. You must retrain it. When you feel the impulse to double text, pause. When you feel the urge to clarify your worth, stay silent. When you feel anxiety after reduced energy, observe instead of react. Discomfort is withdrawal from validation addiction. The pleaser is addicted to approval. Approval feels like safety. But approval purchased through submission is fragile. It disappears the moment you stop performing. The sovereign does not perform for inclusion. He operates from internal structure. Internal structure means your identity does not shift based on someone's response speed. It does not inflate with praise or collapse with silence. It remains stable. Stability commands respect. The pleaser seeks harmony at any cost. The sovereign seeks alignment, even if it costs harmony. Alignment means values match, standards align, effort reciprocates. If those elements disappear, so does access, without apology. You must bury the idea that being nice ensures loyalty. Loyalty is earned through strength, consistency, and selective investment, not through constant availability. Understand this clearly. When you stop begging, you will feel emptiness. That emptiness is space previously filled with external validation. Do not rush to fill it. Build within it. Strengthen your body, expand your income, sharpen your mind, deepen your circle. Anchor yourself in pursuits that do not depend on romantic affirmation. The more anchored you become, the less temptation you feel to negotiate for crumbs. The pleaser negotiates. The sovereign selects. Selection requires standards. Standards require the willingness to lose. If you cannot lose, you will always compromise. Compromise repeated becomes identity erosion. Eroded identity creates quiet resentment. Resentful men are passive-aggressive. Passive-aggressive men are powerless. Kill that cycle. From now on, access to you is a privilege, not because you are arrogant, but because you are disciplined. Your time is finite. Your energy is finite.
Now you understand the structure. Most men will nod at this information, feel a brief surge of resolve, and then relapse the first time silence stretches too long. Because theory is safe. Withdrawal is not. The moment you stop begging, reality shifts. Replies slow. Energy recalibrates. Some people test you. Some withdraw. Some escalate to see if you break. This is the final examination. If you fold, if you chase, explain, overcorrect, you confirm what they suspected. Your restraint was performance, not structure. And once exposed, authority collapses. Understand the danger clearly. You cannot weaponize scarcity while internally fearing abandonment. People sense incongruence. If you delay replies but obsess internally, your tone will leak need. If you reduce access but secretly hope they chase, your frame weakens. Power requires congruence. You must genuinely accept loss. If someone walks away because you stopped overgiving, let them walk. If someone labels you distant because you stopped compensating for their inconsistency, let them label you. If someone tests your boundaries, enforce them once, then close access. No debates. No emotional trials, no courtroom defenses of your standards. Most men cannot tolerate this phase. The discomfort of silence feels like suffocation. The absence of reassurance feels like danger. So they revert to old behaviors. They text again. They explain again. They shrink again. And the cycle resets. You must understand
The transformation is not external, it is neurological. You are rewiring your response to uncertainty. Instead of filling gaps with effort, you allow gaps to exist. Gaps create pressure. Pressure forces clarity. Either the other person rises to meet your structure, or they disqualify themselves. Both outcomes refine your environment. This is where selection begins. You are no longer trying to win everyone. You are narrowing your circle to those who respond to strength with respect, not to generosity with consumption. There will be fewer people, but higher quality. Fewer interactions, but deeper alignment. The sovereign's world is smaller, but stronger. If you commit to this path, you will notice something unexpected. Your anxiety decreases, not immediately, but gradually, because you are no longer negotiating your worth daily. You are no longer performing for inclusion. You are no longer chasing clarity. Clarity comes through behavior. Behavior reveals alignment. Alignment determines access. This is the final warning. If you continue begging, subtly or overtly, you will remain replaceable. If you enforce earned access consistently, you will polarize your environment. Polarization is power. Some will step closer, others will step away. The weak fear polarization because they want universal approval. The sovereign welcomes it because it sharpens hierarchy. From this point forward, ask yourself one question in every interaction. Is this access earned, or am I giving it away? If you are giving it away, tighten the gate. If it is earned, reward it with measured depth. Never reverse the order. Earned first, depth second. Always. Most men will read this and change nothing. A minority will implement it quietly. That minority will move differently, speak less, react slower, select harder, and over time their presence will carry weight, not because they demanded it, but because they controlled access to it. Access is power. Guard it, or remain disposable.